Hey guys, Dark Skeleton here. Last time we went ahead and killed the floating eyeball, the Eye of Cthulhu. Went pretty well, considering we did have 140 life, that's not too bad. But we need to go to the left now, we need to go to the right, and actually explore some of the world. But really, what we're going to run into here in a second is actually going to be the corruption area. Now, there's two different types of corruption. There is the classic one that's been there since the start of Terraria, which has these little flying snake things and the Eater of Worlds as a boss. And then there is the newer version, which is the Crimson Biome, and whenever you create a new map, you're randomly going to get one of these two types. The creatures, the bosses, and the items you can find inside of them are different, but effectively it works a lot the same. What you need to be able to do is get the Dryad NPC, which I'm going to be working on right here. I'm going to be upgrading the house, putting in a couple new rooms, and once you get the Dryad NPC, you can purchase, I believe it's called Purification Powder, for 75 copper a piece. Now, this Purification Powder, you may notice that the actual stone located in Corruption and the Crimson is completely unable to be mined with anything lesser than, I believe, a Nightmare Pickaxe, which you can only get after you've actually done things in the Corruption. So you absolutely need the Purification Powder if you want to go and actually get to these little orbs or hearts, which are contained in areas inside the Corruption, inside the Crimson, that are closed off by the stone that you can't mine yet. Now the Purification Powder, it turns that fancy corrupt stone into just regular stone, and regular stone you can mine. I believe that technically the corrupt stone can be blown up through dynamite anyway, but that's kind of a waste. I really recommend you just get the Dryad, get the Purification Powder, stock up, and then we can go into it and start mining those orbs and the hearts, depending on if you have Crimson or if you have the Corrupt Zone. Now, the items you get from these orbs and hearts are actually very good. A lot better than pretty much everything you have right now. They are roughly on par with the Light's Bane I have right now. But the thing is, once you actually crack 3 of those orbs or 3 of those hearts open, you're going to be spawning a boss, so you need to come prepared if you don't want to die. So now we've gone over to the left where we found one of the corruption areas. For the record, you will almost always, I believe, have corruption spawn on both the left and the right of the starting zone area. You don't have to go down into it. You can pass over it if you're a really weak character and you don't want to deal with it right now. But it's just good to know there's multiple corruption zones on pretty much every map. I haven't actually tested for small maps, but I've never had a map where I didn't have at least 2 zones. Now, these caverns for the corruption side of thing, Crimson will be dealing with later. I'll have to spawn a new map for that. But for the corruption areas, they almost always go down in these very, very dangerous falls. It's a really big deal. You can die really easily here if you, so to speak, don't know exactly what you're doing. And I really recommend you have a hook for both getting in and out of here. If you don't have a hook, then you're going to need at least a ton of wooden platforms, because you can't just dig straight through it like you can with the rest of the map. Not with this pickaxe, anyway. So make sure you have a way to get out before you go in. That could be dying, too, if you're on casual mode. So once you get to the bottom, so to speak, of these pits, you'll either get to the horizontal surface. There's almost always a horizontal area in these corruption zones. And in those horizontal areas, you can see one right down there. You get a lot of altars of darkness. I haven't really explained those before, but those can be used for crafting things like boss spawning items. And later on, when you get to hard mode, they serve an entirely different purpose. Destroying them actually enables you to spawn different types of hard mode ore around the map. Now, as I was talking about earlier, you'll notice that there are these little orbs encased completely from the outside, so you can't get to them without the purification powder. And these orbs are what contain the real treasure of the corruption. Similarly, in the Crimson, the hearts will be encased just like this as well, hidden behind a whole bunch of crimson blocks. So you have to use the purification powder, sprinkle it on all of the rock, and it'll turn it into stone, in which you can actually mine, get down to these orbs. And when you crack them open, they'll always give you a item. Usually, it's a pretty decent weapon. Or is it always a weapon? It might always be a weapon, honestly. And it'll say horrible chill goes down your spine. Well, when you do hit these, it triggers a few events in the world. I think one of it is to enable meteors to start falling on the planet. They don't just happen all the time, though. They only happen pretty much. I've noticed that they happen usually when I actually go and start harvesting these orbs. So it's kind of like a one-time randomly generated event that happens because you triggered the orb. Now, if you hit them, if you break 3 of these orbs open, and every time you break 3 orbs open, you will spawn a boss. In this case, you notice all these little Eater of Souls floating around. Well, the boss that you spawn is the Eater of Worlds, which is very much like one of these little Eater of Souls, except it has the body of one of those giant worms. You know the worms you see when you're digging down into like the brown and the gray areas for regular circumstances, for regular dirt and stone? Well, it's about 100 times the size of that. It might actually be the largest boss. So, as you can see, I'm getting a couple decent items. The Unpleasant Ball of Hurt, arguably a better weapon than my tiny Light's Bane. Simply because the Light's Bane requires me to be too close in melee range, and when it has negative size, that means I can get hit really easily. Using the Ball of Hurt, it's almost like a ranged weapon, honestly. And there are a couple melee weapons in the game like that, just have a range, which is kind of almost unfair. It's way too far, and then it's like, well, why would you bother playing a ranged character if your melee weapons are just as good? Well, there's still reasons. Your melee weapons will never have unlimited range. While you're down here, though, you may, of course, find some of these gold chests. And in that case, I got Hermes boots, which are very, very good. What they allow you to do is, if you continuously run on one surface, and it's uninterrupted, then you can start to sprint faster and faster and faster. So the Hermes boots can let you run, I don't know the exact speed, but it might be something like double speed, so very good at getting you from one side of the map to the other quickly. Or if you build a platform for fighting on, it can also be useful in a boss fight. So when I spawn this orb, it's actually going to spawn an Eater of Worlds. So I'm going to spawn the boss here, but this isn't actually going to be a kill on the boss. This is going to really well demonstrate what happens if you come unprepared. Now, you'll notice where I am right now. I'm down at the bottom of a pit, which is kind of tough to get out of. It's not too difficult if you actually aren't in the middle of a fight, but if you're fighting a boss, like I'm about to spawn the Eater of Worlds here, it's actually a really big deal. And this boss, you want enough room to be able to see the boss, and you definitely want enough room to be able to dodge it. The Ball of Hurt is a decent weapon against it. A lot of these items you actually get from the orbs are good for fighting them. The one you probably want the most, though, is the Vile Thorn. I don't have that, so I'm not going to be able to successfully kill it. Next time, though, we're going to be using the Vile Thorn to actually take out the Eater of Worlds, and it's just a very, very good magical item for killing him, because it hits a lot of different places at once. And this is a boss fight where AoE weapons are really nice against him. You see he has a whole bunch of different parts. But yeah, I'm just going to die here horribly, and we'll go into the proper strategy for fighting the Eater of Worlds next time. So, I've been Dark Skeleton, thank you all for watching, and I will see you all next time.